Hello everyone, this is Dennis Schultz. I'm a solution architect in IBM Rational, and I wanted to give a brief demonstration on how to mobilize your multi-tier software development lifecycle. What do I mean by that? Well, taking the software development lifecycle and looking at it through the lenses of a mobile development team. So if we look at the lifecycle as defined by IBM Mobile First, we address a number of areas: design and develop, instrument, integrate, test, scan and certify, deploy, manage, and obtain insight. The areas that I want to focus on today really are design and develop and test. So we'll start with design and develop. So first let me switch over to IBM WorkLight Studio. WorkLight Studio provides a WYSIWYG development environment to help you build multi-channel, multi-environment applications for mobile. So what you see here is the common design area of the user interface defined in an HTML file. This is a Java query based. And I can see that I have access here directly to the code, as well as a WYSIWYG editor that shows me the rendering of it as I build it. Now, how do I attach this to my back-end systems? Because the mobile applications that really add meaning and value to customers are those that actually integrate to back-end systems and provide meaningful data. That's done through what we call in WorkLight Studio an adapter. So the adapters define how we interface to back-end systems such as REST interfaces, web services, and the like. So makes it very easy to take legacy existing systems and provide those services into a mobile environment, including security and all of the other things. WorkLight also provides a very nice preview capability. So let's take this Android application that I'm building here and deploy it out into the preview environment. Now this is a web-based previewer that enables me to see the application as it would run on a device in a simple web browser interface. So we see the app being rendered here in Amazon Kindle Fire 2 format. Let's say that I really wanted to test this out and see what it looks like on my Samsung Galaxy S3. I can see that. I maybe even want to check it out on a tablet format, and it can render that as well. I may even want to see what does it look like if the tablet is in landscape mode. The preview browser gives me a very nice way to see this very quickly, including inserting events and physical information about the device as we go. So what if we want to build this application for more than just Android? We can do that very simply by just adding a new WorkLight environment. So in this case, maybe I want to deploy it to an iPhone. And that's really all there is to it. The WorkLight environment builds out all of the environment things that are needed for another environment like iPhone. Now, I want to probably customize so that the application looks unique on different platforms, different environments. And I can do that because WorkLight provides not only this common area where I can define the things that are common among all platforms and maintain those as reuse those across my different environments, but I also have the unique things. So I can put different extensions and updates for different environments into those as well. So that really kind of brings us through the very basics of development. So let's take a look then at test, what we can provide with test. Testing mobile applications can be very challenging, and IBM Rational has introduced a new offering called the Rational Test Workbench, and it provides the ability not only to do more traditional web-based functional testing, performance testing of systems, integration testing, virtualization or stubbing of back-end components, but we've added the ability to do mobile-based testing as well. So let's take a look at what that might look like. So we have the workbench here. The other thing that we need is a mobile device. So I'm using a virtual machine running Android here. And the first step in the process is to put the Rational Test Workbench mobile test client on the device. And I've downloaded that through a web interface, and I see that here. Now, as soon as I open that, we notice that it's back here in the workbench that we're now connected. Now, that's the first step. The second step is to make the application that we're testing available to be tested. So one option I have is to upload that existing application from the device. And you see here I have a number of applications that are on my device now that I could upload to the test workbench to define it for testing. That's useful in cases where maybe in a development environment you've already deployed the app to the device and then you want to bring it into the automated testing tool. Another option is to bring the application in from the workbench side. And this may be more applicable for test teams that are given an APK file, for example, and it's on the file system and they need to simply import it. If you're working with Worklite, you could pull that directly from a Worklite workspace as well, or maybe from a website to bring it into the system. I already have my JKE mobile application into Test Workbench, so I'm ready to begin testing. So I'm going to go back to my my mobile test client. Under Manage Applications, I see that app, and I have the option to bring down the original variant, or if I want to do recording or testing, I can bring those down as well. I'm going to start with recording. It starts up the JKE mobile web application, or mobile application. And I'm going to log in with J Brown, my password, J Brown. And as I'm doing this, Test Workbench Mobile Client is capturing all of the actions that I'm performing. I'll click on the checking account so I can see a list of my recent transactions. I'll click back to go back to the home screen and then finally log out. Now, as soon as I exit the application, you'll notice something happen over here in the workbench. There's a new incoming recording. So that recording has been transferred from the device up to the workbench. And we're going to create a simple little demo script here based on that recording. So let's maximize the workbench. We can see that the test was recorded in a natural language format. So each of the steps that I performed have been recorded in the test in a way that's very easy to understand. Input field type text, enter the text J Brown into that field, and so on. When I look in detail, click on any of these, I can see more information about the test element that was involved. And I see a screen capture. Now that screen capture is going to change as I navigate through the series of steps in my test. The object that's being interacted with is highlighted in red at any given point in the test. Now let's look at this at the point where we got into the main screen. Let's say I want to put in a verification point. I want to make sure that this greeting message says "Welcome, Julie," when J Brown logs in. I can click on that, and this is where you see that the screen capture is actually a live image. It's not just a JPEG image of that point in the test. I can actually integrate or interact with objects that are on the screen at that point. So if I right-click on this, for example, I can create a verification point for that content. So that verification point gets added into my test, and it's going to verify that the content of that label is "Welcome Julie" during playback. Now, there are a number of things that we could talk about with these tests here, but the thing that I want to point out here is how objects are recognized. So let's take a look at this list item. Now, the tool assumed it has to find some way to identify an object. In this case, it decided that the content maybe was the best way to identify it. Well, what if I want to use this test with the data pool, and so I'm logging in as a different person, and so the account number would be different. It wouldn't be able to find this object later on playback. So one of the powerful things about Test Workbench is how I can modify that object recognition characteristics. So instead of recognizing this item by its content, maybe I want to recognize it as the object that covers this image of a checking account, because I know no matter where it appears in the list or what account it is, the user's checking account will always have that image under it. So I can do that by changing the object recognition in my test to be automatic and its location to be covering. So you can see all the different options that I have here, where I can identify an object's location based on a relative location based on some other object. So I'm going to say it's going to cover an image, and I'm going to identify that image by its source property, which is now, as soon as I finish typing that source property in, which I derived from looking at that object a moment ago, you notice the red box reappears, and that means that I've now properly identified that object, and this is the object that will be identified during playback. Now, to kind of speed the process up a little bit here, I could go back onto my device, and I could actually go into the Test Workbench mobile test client again, and I could choose to switch to testing, and I can see a couple of tests that I have out here, the demo test that I just recorded. And I can select that, and when I do, I see the test as it appears up on the workbench, also rendered down on the device. And I could run that test. And that's great for getting individual tests done. But scaling becomes a problem. If I wanted to run a whole series of tests in a suite, for example, I would have to run them all individually from the device. I have another approach. If I go back out to my main screen of my Test Workbench mobile client, I can switch to passive mode. Now, passive mode means that the management of the test is going to be controlled from the Test Workbench itself and not down on the device. So if we switch back to the workbench, I could run this individual test by clicking the Run button in the middle of the screen. Let me take another leap here. I'm going to look at this checking account transactions test, which is it's really exactly what I just recorded. But what I've done is I've wrapped a loop around it, and I've associated this test to a data pool. So a data pool is really nothing more than a spreadsheet of data. And so I'm going to run this same test using two different logins, and I've associated the columns of my data pool to different values within the test. So, for example, you see the green highlight of the username and the password that was typed in, and the verification point for the label for the greeting message. Those are all associated with columns in my data pool. So I could run this test back then from the Test Workbench, again, saving me some time by enabling me to run it directly from the workbench instead of going back and forth to the device. Let me take one more leap before we run this. In a normal test environment, we want to do a lot of our planning at a higher level. So mobile testing is one channel of a multi-channel environment, let's say. So instead of running the test team sort of autonomously, that mobile team needs to be part of the overall approach to developing applications, because what you're delivering really are multi-channel applications, not a standalone web application. So from that, I want to be doing my test planning and design in a test planning and design tool like Rational Quality Manager. So what you see here is a test case in Rational Quality Manager. It has been associated to that test script that we were just looking at, checking account transactions. And so I can run the test directly from Quality Manager. Quality Manager will use the execution adapter of the workbench to run the test from the workbench. And eventually that gets deployed down to the device itself. So what we'll see here in a moment is the test kicks off, and you see the robotic control down on the device itself. By the way, this could be a virtual machine as you see me using here. It could be a physical Android device. It could be an Android emulator. And then we also support iOS testing on the iOS simulator as well with this solution. So we're robotically controlling the execution of the test from Quality Manager. As that's running, I can see the basic progress summary being updated here. We see the number of tests that have passed, or verdicts that have passed, the percent that have passed. And now, if we're looking at the device again, we'll see that it's making the second pass through the data pool, which is using the Richard Betts login. And when we get to the home screen, you might notice that the message says, "Welcome, Rita." The test will complete. Now that the test is completed, the results have been uploaded to Rational Quality Manager, and we see that we have a failure. Look at the results. There are several reports that are attached to the results, including the mobile report showing me every step that was taken in the test, the time at which it was taken, and a screenshot of the mobile app at that point. I can click on the screenshot if I want to magnify it and see the details. I have a link at the top that takes me to the very first failure. And we recognize here that although we were looking for Welcome Richard, what we actually found was Welcome Rita. So maybe this is a defect. So we can associate our test to a defect. We can create a brand new defect, or in this case, I've already created one here. But if we associate maybe a new defect, I can file this against Business Recovery Matters. Let's say that it's critical. It was found in Sprint 2 development, and I'm going to go ahead and assign it to Deb and commit her to delivering this in Sprint 3, let's say. Of course, it's high priority. That associates this new defect to our test results. And the value of that in the context of the software development lifecycle is that all of those relationships are maintained. So if I navigate to this defect now and I look at the details, I can look in the links section and I see the test result that was impacted by this defect. I also see the test case from which that result was defined. That test case had been associated to a requirement that it was validating. And so that affected requirement is linked to this defect as well as the plan item, the development item, the story that was being implemented. So by using Rational Test Workbench to automate the testing of my mobile application, I'm able to tie that into the entire life cycle, development life cycle, and associate that to all of my other artifacts in the life cycle. So what you've seen today, we showed a little bit of IBM Worklight to develop the multi-tier, multi-platform application. We looked at the Rational Collaborative Lifecycle Management Solution, in particular Rational Quality Manager and Rational Team Concert, and then used Rational Test Workbench as the automation engine for testing the mobile app UI. If you'd like to learn more, there are a number of other videos and resources that are available on YouTube, and I encourage you to take a look at those. Thank you very much for your time.